Hey Nerd Herd, Rich Dotson here, back again with this week's Week 11 sneaky starts of the week, the home stretch here, the fantasy football season. Only got a couple more weeks here before we enter the playoffs, so we all need help everywhere along the lines of fantasy football lineups. And of course, this year, with the extended playoff season, where most of us are going to start our playoffs in Week 15 this year. And what's crazy and where we're going to need help is that the buys go all the way through Week 14. So we all need a lot of help this year. Find those sneaky starts, get through these injuries, get through these bad matchups. So I got a couple sneaky starts this week for you to get in your fantasy lineup to help you get that coveted W. Let's start out with the quarterback, Cam Newton for the Carolina Panthers. Now, there's a lot of things to like here about Cam Newton. One, he's got much better weapons. And you might say, Rich, last year he was terrible. He did horrific with the New England Patriots. But New England Patriots don't have any weapons whatsoever. Look at the Carolina Panthers. That receiver, Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore, the great rookie Terrace Marshall out of LSU. Not great, but solid. And, of course, Christian McCaffrey. And what does Christian McCaffrey does? He gives you a lot of game yards in the passing game, which benefits the quarterback as well. And who does Cam Newton play this week? The Washington football team. What a great way to get back in the fantasy football world than having your first matchup versus the worst team in the NFL when it comes to stopping the fantasy football quarterbacks, the Washington football team. Cam Newton got a little bit of action last week. Came in there, only had 4 passes, completed 3 of them though. He had 2 touchdowns, and of course he had that 1 rushing touchdown to the right side there. Looked pretty good. Hurts Christian McCaffrey owners, but remember, that's what made Cam Newton such a viable option in the fantasy football world forever, is what he looks like in the red zone. He's always a threat to run it in himself. Plenty of rest, great matchups this week. Cam Newton is an excellent spot start. Maybe you have Kyler Murray, maybe he'll play, maybe you have a guy on bye this week. Cam Newton's a great option versus the fantasy football or the Washington football team this week. I know they had a really good matchup last week, but this is still a team. They're giving up almost 300 yards passing to fantasy football quarterbacks. They're giving up almost 3 touchdowns per game to the fantasy football quarterback. This is too good of a matchup to resist. You got to get Cam Newton off your waiver wire, which I'm not sure most of you guys did, but then also make sure to get him in your lineup. A running back. Who doesn't need help at running back? And there's a lot of guys out there that are viable options. Ramondre Stevenson still for the New England Patriots, even though Damian Harris is coming back. We still got Deontay Foreman for the Tennessee Titans. A great start this week because he looks like he's getting the lion's share for the Tennessee Titans out there. And then there's Jeff Wilson, who just came back. He came back week 10, but he wasn't really playing in week 10. Then we saw, or week 9. Then we saw last week he came in and he was viable. This is a guy who averaged 11.9 points per game last year for the San Francisco 49ers. And this week, we don't know how Elijah Mitchell is going to play. We know that he's got that fractured finger. Is he going to be active? Is he going to get a lot of carries? Or will he just be kind of mixed in? Even if he's mixed in, he's still a viable flex option here. And he's also got some good matches coming up next week. He's got Jacksonville, the Jaguars playing against this week. He's got Seattle Seahawks coming up on the schedule, which aren't very good. So this is a guy who can come in here, and we all know San Francisco is really good when it comes to fantasy football running backs. They just love the run, the football. Look what they did last week. 10 minutes off the clock, just pounding that ball down the field. Elijah Mitchell's look good. He's the man. But look for Jeff Wilson to be a nice flex player, or if he's ever the main running back, which is possible this week, he's a great option for your fantasy football lineup. I like Jeff Wilson if Elijah Mitchell does not play. And if Elijah Mitchell even does play, I still like Jeff Wilson if you need some running back help. You could do much, much worse. Wide receiver, Jamal Agnew. He plays San Francisco this week, so it's not even a bad matchup. And this is a guy who didn't do much at all last week, but he's really starting to become the number 1 receiver, let's just face it, here for the Jacksonville Jaguars right now. He's kind of turning what we kind of want Laviska Shenault be, because we saw him get a couple carries. He's had 3 carries for 79 yards and a score. But what I really like is Jamal Agnew's usage as of late. He's seen at least 5 targets per game as of late, and we're seeing his snap percentage share increase. This is a guy over the first 4 games of the season only saw about 7% of the snaps. And then over the last 5 games, he's somebody who's seen at least 44% of the snaps. And then over the last 3 games, two of the last 3 games, he has seen over 50% of the snap share. And what a matchup he has after San Francisco this week, which is a good matchup. He's got Atlanta coming up the week after that. Then the Rams, and then for the home stretch, Tennessee, who's the worst in the league when it comes to stopping the fantasy receivers. Then the Texans, then the Jets. So now this is not a guy who can only help you this week. he can help you down the stretch as a nice flex play or wide receiver 3. Again, this is somebody who's seeing a lot of targets over these last couple of games and starting to become the number 1 receiver for the Jacksonville Jaguars, who will always be playing from a negative game script. Well, anytime a team trails, they got to throw the football. When they throw the football, that equates to fantasy points. Jamal Agnew should be the beneficiary here for the rest of the season for your fantasy football team. Last and but not least, a tight end. How about the former Dayton Flyer, Adam Troutman? Now, we know when these small school tight ends come in, or small school players, they need time to develop, especially the tight end. Well, Adam Troutman's starting to really come into his own here. This week, he plays the Philadelphia Eagles, and I always try to find matchups here when we're talking sneaky starts. And this is where it comes from. The Philadelphia Eagles are terrible when it comes to stopping the fantasy football tight ends. Now, they're really good stopping receivers, so when they stop the perimeter out there, it really opens up the middle of the field, and the tight ends have benefited. They're seeing about 8 catches per game at the position. And Troutman's somebody who's starting to see his target share increase as well. We've seen Deontay Harris get a little bit more looks out there for the Saints, and so is Adam Troutman with Trevor Siemian at the helm. Again, this week versus Philadelphia, too good of a matchup not to get into your lineup. I really like his target share as of late. Seeing about 15% of the targets out there for the Saints, where we've seen Deontay Harris see an uptick. We've seen Marquez Callaway. We've seen his target share go up a little bit as well. And they're all starting to find a little bit of success here with Trevor Siemian at the helm. I like Adam Troutman as a sneaky starter. If you need tight end help, and he's somebody who's probably on your waiver wire, you go ahead and change that, get him in your lineup, get that W, and let's get these sneaky guys in our lineup to help get through these buys, help get these injuries by past us, and get one step closer to win that fantasy football championship. Thanks for listening. Hit that like button, that subscribe button, and notifications button to make sure you catch all our Dynasty Nerds content on a weekly basis.